Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so what are some lessons you learn in life, right? You can't be better or cuter than babies or dogs. So like the cute girl before, right? We're not going to be better than that. And you can't prevent people from ice cream, right? So if you guys will stay with us for a short amount of time, we'll try to make this as entertaining and humorous as possible. And hello. So guys, Joseph Dressler, great to meet you. I work for a company called Adform. The only thing I want you to remember about Adform is in the world of cookieless technology, you are likely not getting the reach and frequency you deserve, which means there's a lot of media wastage. I would love to show you a new way that we're quantifying what that media wastage is. I'll let that go. Anthony?
How's it going, everyone? And first of all, thank you for sitting here. We know that it's 2 p.m. and there's been a lot of entertainment that's been going on, and hopefully you get some value out of this session as well. Anthony Toguchi, I'm the head of digital marketing for the institutional business at Vanguard. We are an investment company, but we have really anchored in our mission to give our clients the best chance of financial investment success. And as we think about the investment products, they're world-class. And our individual investors want to invest. We have companies that want to invest. We have technology that helps manage these funds. And through our retirement benefits, we have a great best-in-class team that helps service those clients. And then we also help our financial advising partners. As we think about how they go to market, it's success for them really means success for us as well. And so we look at our consultants and third-party partners as important.
So what's interesting is we usually have a chance to get a sense of who we're gonna talk to about a week ahead of time. And what I found out was Vanguard, a little part about my history. I started investing in 1994 with a Vanguard fund. So it was funny to like connect with Anthony and be like, oh my God, it's been years ago and you were the safe product I knew to start with because my parents would never let me invest in anything else because they were not big investors themselves. So it was an honor to kind of share the privilege with you. All right, one other quick kickoff, and I'm gonna have to embarrass you because you
wait a minute, did we talk about this?
No, we did not. That's why it's even better. So do me a favor, raise your hands if you are number one in your household at anything. Anything. It should be most of you. I would imagine everyone's good at least one thing in their house, better than everybody else, right? Raise your hand if you're number one in your company at something. Oh, I like the hands. That's excellent. Excellent.
Raise your hand.
Now raise your hand really fast if you're number one in the country at something. Let me ask the question again. Can you raise your hand if you're number one in the country at something?
Oh, you're looking at me, yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, you weren't raising your hand.
Oh, I thought you were asking the audience.
No.
Go ahead.
Look, in the sense of it's great for you guys to get to know who's up here, right? There's the professional side of them, but obviously there's also the personal side. And the personal side usually affects the professional side. And I want to give you a chance, because I think it's well due and honored, just to share with the audience what you are number one at in the country, or were at one point.
You want me to share?
I do.
All
want
right.
you to share.
So I used to do karate, or in my sport, in my language, karate. So I was with the U.S. Olympic Committee, number one in the country. So I got to represent the U.S. and traveled around the world to compete, and it was an honor to represent the U.S.
I think it's an amazing story, right? Obviously, we talked about this before. But and how we tied this together, right, was the idea of when you get to that level of discipline, think about what that means in your work life. Right? And we really got to dive into some details and think through not just the fluffy answers to questions, right, but the real insightful questions. So I hope today, not only can we share things with you that will hopefully help you guys, but you will really like beat us up with questions afterwards that you want to dive deep into. And I'll share one other thing really quickly, and then you can definitely jump.
All right.
Right, which is I got to do one of these in Boston, a wonderful CMO I was on the stage with, and he gave a very fluffy answer. And in front of a room just like you guys, I literally looked at him and I go, that's a very CMO answer. No one in the room is going to appreciate that. Can you give me a better answer to that? And he looked at me and he smiled. He's like, yeah. And he dove into the answer really well right afterwards. I know you won't do that because of the discipline that you bring.
Well, I appreciate it. And
We're all done. You guys have Sorry, Joe, you used it all up. Sorry, Anthony, but we've got to.
It's all good.
All right, so let's dive into it. So we are talking about customer journey today, right? Which obviously customer journey, depending on the company you work with, looks and feels very different. But actually, what Anthony and I would probably disagree with is it's all very similar. Now, the product is different, right? And the timing is different, but how you think about it. So let's start with a broad question and we'll dive in deeper. Anthony, when you think about customer journey at Vanguard, what does that mean to you? How do you even start thinking about what a customer journey represents to you in your business?
You know, so one of the probably core critical pieces of our company has been really how do we put our clients in the center? And so when we go back to the mission statement, we think about the client, the consumer, the economic buyer at a company who chooses to go with us or to stay with us. What's really fascinating is that that journey is really facilitated on a bunch of need states. And so as we think about our journey and how we think about the client, we want to try to figure out what are the needs that we can meet of those clients. What are the things that we can help them get to that point where investment success is achievable to what and how they define their goals.
And when you think about the need state, right, how do you start to get that? Because obviously you can be sitting in a great boardroom with lots of really smart marketers. I think some of your team is here. I'm sure there's very sophisticated, very smart. But how do you start to get that information from the customer themselves?
You know, part of it is just making sure that you're there with the customer, right? You know, I don't know if any company really has cracked the nut on customer journeys. But one thing that we do know is that there are some key drivers and outcomes that we've been able to achieve over the years. And we know those matter to our clients. And so as we think about what are the different things that we need to know, we have a great team that does research. They go out and they try to put ourselves in the shoe of the customer. Now, as we begin to translate that, I think that's where it becomes really challenging for marketing departments to actually get in there and think about the pressures that they're facing from the business to meet sales targets and goals. But at the same time, we have, as marketers, have a responsibility to make sure that we're thinking about that consumer and how are we thinking about their journey, their interactions, their decision points on a cycle basis, right? Whether it's a day-to-day or if it's through a buying process. What does that look like, and how do we then begin to meet their needs there?
And so for the group, just so they get a sense of the shoes that you walk in every day, not the Nikes that we saw up here earlier today, but different pairs of shoes. What is that? What are some of the steps that for you, right, the B2B buyer kind of goes through? What are trigger points that make you go, oh, wow, they've moved in their journey with us?
Yeah. So we do know that in the institutional business, so the retirement business that I'm a part of, there are some triggers. It could be some fiduciary or some sort of regulatory type of trigger that happens. It could be a change in the economic buyer, right? Change of sort of the helm. There are a lot of different things that could possibly move that. And so how do we then partner with that person or that team? But then we also have this third-party broker or this consultant that helps sort of facilitate that deal. Like, how do we get and understand their needs and pain points? And so we probably, in more recent years, gotten really smarter around that audience. Okay. What are the drivers? What are their roles? Like, how do we partner them? How do we make them the hero? And then allow us to be a little bit closer around some of that process when they're making the decision.
When you think about the customer journey in your world, do you think about it in ones and zeros in the sense of down the road, right? There's a large mutual fund company who you guys obviously compete with. Is it a winning or losing versus them with the institutional investor, or is there always a chance to kind of gain market share?
You know, I think what we're trying to do is try to figure out how we can make our clients successful. Okay. And so
what does that mean, client successful?
You know, we want them to achieve their goals. Right? And I think that there's a lot of science that we put behind what are the ways that we can help maximize the opportunities based on risk tolerance. So probably not going too far down this sort of the route. What we want to try to do is get smart around how do we market to the clients, right? How do we think about the consumer? How do we think about what are the key things that they need to know in order to make those decisions? And so that's where getting into a way where we can map out that journey, how we can think about how that intersects with sales, but then at the same time realize that there is an obligation around how do we then help our client-facing teams be successful in their goals as well.
And so here we are at Brand Innovators, right? The second word is innovator. Start talking to me a little bit about, from a marketing perspective, and you can go down any part. It could be media, it could be analytics, it could be email, it could be in any tools that you're using. Walk me through what you think some of the interesting or innovative tools maybe you're using at Vanguard, or if you want to pull from your own history, obviously, at other marketers you've been at.
So the tools and the technologies themselves and sort of
trying to not be bleeding edge necessarily, but like what are you using that you're like, oh, we're seeing this be innovative. It's different for our company. It's finding either a new outcome or a more efficient outcome.
Well, let me start with how maybe internally, and then there's an external component to it. That's cool. Yeah. All right. So, you know, what I've found in not just Vanguard, but probably in my more recent histories of some of the past companies I've worked at, there's been an element around how do you work with sales and marketing together? So there's a trust and a relationship that you build, right? And that's sort of more of that sort of relationship being socially savvy, et cetera. When you think about then, how do you then start to standardize that way of working? I think that's really critical. So some of the tools that helps us to get really on a common ground, like you have your databases, you have your CRM tools. But in today's world, a plethora of marketing technologies that allow for you to leverage the data to inform personalization, right? Inform that there are certain signals or sort of events that happen with a client that says, you know what, maybe there's something here that you need to explore brand to act on. And so there are a really great group of providers that do that, and I think that's been awesome. Now, the external piece, I think, has probably changed for us, and I think the shift has changed in the sense that I think, like I know in past companies, we thought of the client very siloed. And the question that I asked earlier, right? Like, hey, have you thought about cross-sell, or have you thought about the audience in multiple different shoes? The person who's buying from us as representing a company could be somebody who's individually interested in investing. So how do you look at that person more holistically? How do you start piecing together that puzzle and think about the full needs of that person? And I think that as I was thinking about a recent example of a past company when I was at MasterCard, there was a point in time where the buyer themselves has to think through sort of those needs that, what do I trying to get out of this deal? But we sort of forget that this person's a consumer too. So they see our advertising, they see what we put in front of them, their family may be experiencing what we're throwing out there. And I remember that whole Priceless campaign and really building that out and thinking that, hey, listen, the company has to work together and not siloed, because at the end of the day, the person who's working with us, partnering with us, looks at us as a brand.
It's funny that you say that. I remember going back, I used to work at a company called Smart Money years ago, and we would always talk about the B2B decision maker, right? Who are they? And you'd have some people who would, fine tune to the endless degree of who this audience is. And then when you did the cross match with with larger data companies, you realized, exactly to your point, they're everyday consumers, right? Now they had habits, hobbies, and interests the same way, but you had to remember to talk to them both ways. It's not like somebody's in the work only having one hat on, and then at home they're only another hat, right? We all do this now, right? But you're always thinking both ways. I like what you said before about sales and marketing, and hopefully there's a decent amount of people who care about this question. Sales and marketing both love and hate each other in most companies.
Yeah.
The reaction, I think, is fair, right?
Yeah.
And so give me a sense on, as a marketer, right? You're playing the right side. I'll play the left side as a seller here.
All right.
Not politics left and right, by the way, just to be clear, right? So I'll play one side, you play the other. As a seller, I know I want my marketing to support an overall message in the marketplace. So if I call someone the first time, they're like, oh, I'm aware of you, right? I don't need you to sell the products. I need the awareness. And then I know there's sellers who are like, I need everything done for me. We're not asking you to call out names, but what do you feel is your hardest challenge helping sellers in Vanguard today?
Sellers, like sales.
Sales.
Oh, got it, yeah.
Sorry.
I think credibility in understanding the business. Okay. So, we have people from Vanguard that it's with me today. I see one person in the back over there, knows the business, has been at Vanguard for a long time, super credible. And if you can understand the business, that's so important. So for example, actually we shared this example in the other room. So when I was at Nestle, I did a lot of work overseas. So I did work in China. And what was really fascinating about the Chinese model, you ever see a product that it's retailed at a certain price, but then when you look online, you can find it at a cheaper price. But it's not just like a sale discount, it's like a substantial discount. Have you ever experienced that before? Ooh, lot of head nods.
Lots of head nodding.
Lots
right?
of head nods.
Yeah.
So I sat down with the general manager of China, and he walked me through what happens in China. So distribution of a product goes through the manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor, and then ultimately to the retailer, right? So a supply chain with markups, right, and profit made at each stage. So what happens is sometimes product gets sold to the end user or to maybe somebody who's actually going to market at the retail and cutting out some of these other parts of the supply chain. but they don't want the full lot. They want a portion of it. So out of 100, let's say they only buy 80 units of it, right? That leaves 20 units. So the person who's a part of that supply chain doesn't really care about those 20 units. In fact, they'll get rid of it at 90% of cost and still make a profit. So now you have a product that you would have bought at $10 per se, now it's on the market at $6. The person who bought the 20 unit bought it at $2, and now you made a profit all across the board. So as a brand, that becomes a challenge. So when we were thinking about advertising and we were thinking about how do we promote that product, you're now convincing the consumer that you have to sell that product for $10, and that's worth $10 when they see it on the marketplace for less than that. What does a marketer do? Do they have to build credibility? Is there a brand safety thing that you got to address, right? And it becomes a very, very real problem as a marketer to think about, if you understand the business and you understand sort of the economies that happen and the sort of the economics, how do you think about then solving for a problem on the business side and then bringing a marketing solution to that?
So I think to your point, right, as a consumer who buys stuff, right, or even as a seller being in market, I want to know there's trust, safety in some scenarios, depending on what I'm selling, right, but really trust and value in the product that I'm selling. And you, as a marketer, right, play that overarching conversation while balancing probably many other goals at the same time. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely fair. Cool. Let's dive into media for a second, right? In the world that we live in today, I kind of brought it up before. You know, Google this year in January officially deprecated 1% of the cookie in Chrome. Safari, Firefox, right, haven't been cookieless for many other years. In big picture perspective, don't go into anything too deep, that's not the point of the question. Big picture perspective, how is Vanguard thinking about the future of programmatic or digital media, knowing that some of the key identifiers are leaving your space?
Yeah, so we do have a task force that's on that. And I believe as we think about that future world, you know, there's a bunch of false starts that's happened over the...
A bunch?
Yeah, and there's one that's like, hey, are we going to pull the rug this year even, right? But I do think that we are thinking about that very practically, right? What is the value of how much information do we want to know about the consumer on a first-party basis, right? Zero-party data, right? How much can we have the customer-consumer give to us to help inform what could be a great experience when we think about advertising and media buys?
No, finish there.
Yeah, I just think that there's a bunch of stuff that we're thinking about, and we need to really just be more focused as the sort of that finish line is like right there.
Yeah, it's one of those, I mean, I always joke about the year of mobile, right, which was anywhere from 2005 to 2013, probably, those 8 years of the year of mobile, right? The year of cookie was kind of the same idea, right? GDPR, for anybody who lived that, was the same idea. No one wanted to pay attention until it actually happened. Then people are like, oh, we should do something about this because we're getting sued for billions of dollars. So it's funny what human behavior does in situations like this. So, you know, you're no further behind or ahead, I think, than most companies I talk to. But it's really interesting the spectrum of answers that people are giving. The task force, I think, is a smart one because you need to have people dedicated to solving that. Where a marketer every day is thinking about the core business and what's happening, this is in isolation of that business. And then I want to tie that to something people don't often talk about, which is, sure, the cookie going away means a different way of targeting consumers. That's a fact, that's simple. What a lot of people aren't talking about, though, is how it's going to hurt measurement, right? And ultimately, as marketers in the room, you want to tie the thing you're doing to some sort of outcome, right? And it doesn't have to be, obviously, I hope it's better. I hope it's more than last click. Maybe it's not, right? We all live in that world. But maybe it's MMM, maybe it's MTA. How does Vanguard, especially on the B2B side that you live in, how do you guys think of measurement and proof points? When you're asking for, trying to validate the success of the programs that you've done, how do you bring that back internally, be like, wow, we killed it because?
So we're, in full transparency, we're maturing, I think, like anybody else, right? And I think that, you know, data and quality has been something that we've been working through. So not that anybody here has solved that, have they? Because I would love to talk to you afterwards. No. You know, there's a piece where I think that partnership with sales is really critical. What are the metrics that they're holding themselves to in order to them feel like they've moved the needle in their area? And we're going to try to latch on to how we can impact that. And so there are specific measures that we're looking at that we are actually trying to impact those numbers and being very intentional. But what we want to do, going back to the journey piece, is that we don't want sort of the things that we're doing to create false positives. So we want to make sure that we understand that journey well enough so that when we're thinking about the sales motions and like the sort of the things that we're technically trying to do to meet and deliver on sort of the full funnel impact, that the intersections is hopefully where we generate these type of intent pieces of information or these signals to hand off.
And your zero-party data comment before, for people who don't know, zero-party data is when a consumer or a B2B, doesn't matter who it is, your end customer, is actually giving you information. So it's not inferred, right? You weren't on the site and I did 2 things and I'm inferring that your next buy might be the following. It's literally like, what do you like better, red or blue? I like blue. Great, I'm gonna send you blue things, right? So that's what zero-party data is. I just got a buzz in my ear from the reception desk, so I know we have only a few minutes left. And so I was also told that we cannot go to ice cream unless at least one person asks a question. So we have a whole room here. We've got a lot of people. One of you has to volunteer to ask a question. We're going to be safe. Look at that in the back, John. Amazing.
He's first in line for ice cream.
My question was, is there ice cream? But
that's not an accurate question.
Do you want me to come up with another one?
Yes, please.
Okay, Joe. I'll do it for you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Suffice.
Okay. When we talk about like zero-party data as a replacement for other things or shoring up where you don't have other data, in your experience, is there an issue with zero-party data never reaching scale? And I think of the classic, coming from supermarket, as I'll use that as an example. People always say, well, when we do personalization, we can ask people if they're vegan, and then they click that, and then we don't send them meat. And that's problematic on 2 ways. About 0.5% of people will click that, and of those, half of them still buy meat. So do you see that in, I don't know in other industries, but like, are there other industries where people may be more digitally engaged or giving up more information where that's not an issue and you can reach scale with that, and that is a major impact to have that zero-party data?
No, go for it.
All right. I might even answer on behalf of you in some ways, just from
okay.
from my own financial
All right, so
experience.
I'll answer. Exactly. No, go for it, go.
No, you're here to correct me. That's the point.
Oh, there you go.
So John, I think you're right. You can't ask the question and turn around, by the way. You have to pay attention. That's how this works. It was good. It was a good made-up question, but you can't. No, not whatsoever. So I think, look, your question's a good one. There is no doubt that zero-party data will have the lowest scale of anything you're going to do because it is a direct consumer responding back to you, right? You think about loyalty programs versus normal shoppers, right? That's always truncated, and you're asking someone for basically just a phone number or an email address. Zero-party data, you're asking for real information. So there is no doubt that zero is less. There are great data companies that are out there that will help you make, depending on the size of the zero-party data, that can make it scalable using really complicated lookalike audiences. Don't fall for that term just regularly. Every ad tech company in the world is going to tell you they can do lookalike. There's really the right way to do it, and there's someone who's like, oh yeah, there are males over here. We did a lookalike. Like, it's very different. And then, John, the reason I was joking with Anthony about kind of answering for him is, in all financial services companies I've worked with, right, as a consumer now in this scenario, there's some very specific questions you have to answer about your risk tolerance, right? You have to answer those. Now, not every category that you guys all represent in the room has those same questionnaires, but it's a way of saying, I know in that world, like I had at different points of my career, I had to show what my assets were, right? I had to show how risky I wanted to be, what I wanted to try, what I didn't want to try, what I wanted to stay away from. So that was a world that I saw having a lot of scale because almost every consumer I was aware of was participating in it. So it depends on kind of the level of detail. Your point about grocery stores is I might be vegan, but I'm buying for my family who's not vegan. And therefore I absolutely should see a meat sale because my wife, husband, brother, sister, whoever I live with, right, is going to buy, I'm going to buy meat for them. So that's a very fair and valid scenario. Anything you want to add? I talked about you, but not really.
Yeah, it's all right. I feel loved anyway.
You do.
I just think that if us as marketers can figure out how we can be better at that value exchange, I wonder if there's something there in regards to brands saying, hey, this is what we can deliver to you if we had this piece of information.
That's a great comment.
I wonder if there's something there as marketers we could try to figure out more holistically.
First $1,000 from Vanguard for free if I answer my information. just putting it out there. Are we good?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.